I don't know why I don't gravitate. Hello there and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mackenzie and thank you so much for being here today. We are going to do kind of a fun video. I'm going to be taking audiobook recommendations from some of my favorite booktubers. So I've chosen 3 books from 3 different booktubers to try out on audio so that way I can kind of open up and broaden my horizons. Last month I did my first ever multimedia book where I listened to the audio and I read the book physically, and I even just listened to my first audiobook last month. So I'm really trying to get more in the habit of finding audiobooks, listening to them while I do my chores throughout the house and run my errands. So we're going to listen to Books in Lala, Gabby Reads, and Noelle Gallagher recommend some of their favorite books. So let's take a listen. First, we're going to listen to Books in Lala. She is going to recommend Pride by Evie Zavoy.
And then she also narrated Pride by Evie Zavoy, which is another book I love so much. It's a Pride and Prejudice remix, as it says. This is a story of Zuri and Darius, and they're living in Brooklyn. One of them is new to their neighborhood, and it's about gentrification and their romance, and also the main character and her ambition in life and where she wants to go. And I just love the choice of Elizabeth Acevedo narrating it as well.
Alright, so obviously I am super stoked that it's going to be narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo, who is going to give it this very lyrical kind of feel, especially since her books are also written in verse. So I've got that one all set up on my Libby app, and now we're going to listen to Gabby Reads. She is going to recommend Daisy Jones and the Six.
Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because this is one of those books that I don't know if I would recommend it to you, like reading it physically, because this book can be very boring and kind of dense the way it's written, but in an audiobook format, this book is so much fun. Because this entire book is following this band, Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's entirely told in interview format. So I know that for me personally, reading this physically, I was bored out of my freaking mind. But listening to the audiobook, there's an entire full cast of narrators, so it's just so highly entertaining, and you get to hear all the different voices of all the different band members, and it's just an experience listening to this book on audio. And so I would highly recommend listening to this one on audio, not so much reading it physically though, but the audiobook, amazing.
So I know Gabby listens to a lot of audiobooks, and so when she said that this book was much better, just better as an audio than it would be as a physical book, just because of the in-depth interview style of the book, that's why I was definitely excited to pick up this one. Also, Taylor Jenkins Reid is like an author I hear about all the time, so it's time to figure out if I like this author or not. And last but not least, we're going to listen to Noelle Gallagher, and she is going to recommend Pet Sematary.
The first one, and I have talked about this a million times on this channel, so I'm not even going to waste your time, but Pet Sematary by Stephen King as an audiobook is exceptional. It's narrated by Michael C. Hall, who plays Dexter in the show Dexter, so it's like hella creepy, and he like really dedicates himself to Louis Creed, and it's just awesome. Like, it's such a good audiobook, and it really creeped me out. So hearing Dexter's voice read a scary story to me was scary. It was awesome. So definitely suggest Pet Sematary. I think it's so good in the audiobook version.
So when I watched Noelle's video, I was planning on maybe picking a few different books from her recommendations video, but because she is the queen of Stephen King, why not pick a recommendation for a Stephen King novel? And this was the only one she had in her recommendations video. And on top of that, I love Dexter. I love the show. I read the first book, Darkly Dreaming Dexter, and I'm really excited to see what kind of what kind of horror Michael C. Hall can bring to this grief story. I have seen the newer movie of Pet Sematary, and so I'm kind of interested to see, first of all, how the original book was written, and then see how this book is different than all of his other horror and thrillers. I've heard that Pet Sematary, while it does have like horrific aspects of it, is more of a story of grief and this man losing his family. And so I'm kind of really interested to see how that is explored in Stephen King's writing. So to listen to my audiobooks, I have the Libby app. I have 2 library cards, one for the Los Angeles Public Library and then the LA County Library. And I put them both on there, and then I'm able to look for physical ebooks or audiobooks. I've been mainly using it for audiobooks. Alright, let's talk audiobooks. So, Pet Sematary. What to say about Pet Sematary? Well, it is an interesting thing. I picked up Pet Sematary, like I said, because Michael C. Hall was narrating it. I was very excited. It also seems as if it's one of the Stephen King novels that's not so much focused on horror, but mainly grief. And I did enjoy the newer movie that came out as well. So I was very interested to get into it, and I guess the main critique that I have is just the writing. I enjoyed the narration. I didn't have any issue following the story without the hard copy with me. The only issue I had was believing the character of the father. Because I know what happens in this story. I know that this father is supposed to have such a love for his family that he does things, I'll keep it spoiler free, that he does things. But the first chapter of this story is all about him daydreaming about abandoning his family, wanting to abuse his female child, hating his female child for being a child, like talking and asking questions and being loud like children do. And like, I get that this book was written in the 80s, but how am I supposed to care about this father at all when he doesn't care about his family at all? It's not fun to read about. So I have officially decided to DNF that book at 20 pages in, because no amount of Michael C. Hall's amazing voice is going to make up for the fact that this father is, I don't believe that he has grief. That he will have grief. I don't. I believe he wants to be alone and was trapped in this marriage, and him losing his family is not going to be the end of the world for him. It's very much, it reminds me of The Shining in the sense where it's like, I don't believe the Overlook made Jack crazy. I believe Jack already hated his life and his family and his wife and wanted out. And the Overlook exacerbated that. So I'm not really into a story about a man who doesn't care about his family, who's gonna have grief over his family. I don't care. So we're moving on. And then I picked up Pride. Whoa, I thought that this, because I started with Pet Sematary and then I started to get nervous about this video because what am I gonna sit here and talk trash about all these audiobooks that were recommended? Thank God, no. Pride is amazing. This is the first retelling I've ever heard of Pride and Prejudice. I've done a lot of other retellings and I am a fan of them. I don't know why I don't gravitate. I don't know why I don't gravitate towards them more, because I very much enjoy them. It's like being wrapped up in like a blanket, your baby blanket, but your baby blanket was sewn into a bigger blanket. And so there's familiarity there, but there's also newness, and it's not bad or wrong or anything. It's so good and it feels so... It does feel natural. I hate when retellings don't feel natural. Like they're like, this has to happen because it's a retelling. I hate that. So I'm very excited. Pride is probably going to be one that I continue to listen to even after this video. I think I'm 3 chapters in already. It's so good. I love it. Man, what are the next ones? I think I'm going to listen to Pride for a little bit longer today, and then we'll move on to one of the other audiobooks, and I'll check back in with you after that. So I read Daisy Jones and the Six last night. Well, kind of. I think I read 8 pages, like 2%. I didn't read very much. However, it was getting very really sad and hard to listen to, okay? So Daisy Jones is it is a completely amazing story idea with a full cast of audio narrators, and it's amazing. It's the conception of this novel is amazing, and the way even the author's note at the beginning is the fake author who wrote this book, Daisy Jones and the Six, which is an autobiography of, or an autobiography? It's a biography. I'm sorry, I don't know things. A biography? It's a tell-all novel book about this band. It's compiled interviews and excerpts from other books and newspaper clippings. It seemed very, very in-depth, in detail, and really interesting. My issue with it was purely personal. It made me very sad. Daisy Jones is like a underage girl hanging out with older men in rock bands, and like within the first 8 pages it talks about her being raped because she was underage and there is no consent there, and it's like, if that happens in the first 8 pages, I can't imagine what's gonna keep happening. And not to mention that the narrator is a full cast, and so there's a voice for Daisy Jones, and it seems authentic, and she acts her heart out, and hearing her relive that was not something I wanted to continue. Even thinking about it is just heartbreaking for me, so I'm sure it continues on and the narrators continue to be amazing and act their hearts out, and I really did enjoy this kind of fake band, let's follow it. It seemed very in-depth, in detail. It really made me feel like Daisy Jones and the Six as a band was like this phenomenon that people just needed to know about, and it was so exciting. It seemed like it was really on track with what it wanted to be, and honestly, I can't even fault it for saying that Daisy Jones was, you know, an ignored underage girl, and so she went off and sought attention from older men, because that is the reality in some situations. It was just so heartbreaking to hear it. I think maybe I could read it on the physical page, because it's not like a gratuitous scene, it's just hearing heartbreak in someone's voice and like knowing that these characters are just gonna be acting it out for like hours of this book. Ooh, I was emotional immediately and could not. So I am definitely not DNFing it out of any other reason than like, you got me, I'm too emotional for this, so good job. And like, praise to those actors, narrators, like they were amazing. So excellent, but not for me. Too emotional over here. So I guess that's gonna wrap up. I read my 3 books. It was a 1 4-star and 2 DNFs, which doesn't seem like it was like a good ratio, but honestly, I have come to love more audiobooks and aspects of audiobooks, finding out what I like in an audiobook and what I would prefer in a physical book. I've really gathered much information from this experiment. I'm really happy with actually doing it. I'm sure we'll be doing a part 2 because why not? This has been very fun. And reading audiobooks with or without the physical copy is such an experience. It's so fun, and it can be something that makes me want to do like other things so that way I can listen to my audiobook instead of, you know, read. So especially with Pride this time around with Pride, I didn't want to stop Pride, so instead I played Stardew Valley for so long, much longer than I was anticipating, because I just wanted to finish Pride. So I mean, it works and it's great and I love it, and it lets me do a lot more of my hobbies all at the same time. So definitely something we're going to revisit. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you next time. So have a great day. Bye.